reaction shots in this series of bolts and things, because it's just been a lot of rinse and repeat. We're at the fuel tank now because I haven't figured out the transmission tunnel, so I've sent a few messages to a few people. Just got to strip back the carpet on this, take the straps off, then we need to remove the fuel tank, which could be, it's pretty empty. It only had maybe 3 litres in it, it said, towards the end, and it's not exactly the most reliable fuel gauge in the world. So let's just get these 2 bolts off that are holding the straps on, which is attached to this carpet. I don't know if you can see that, like that. Interesting way to strap it on, just with carpet, but anyway, I suppose it works. And then behind there are 2 chassis bolts, so let's get on with it. De-strap. Get this wire over the top. Come on. There we go. Oh, it is strapped to the bottom as well. I didn't see that. Oh my days. What? Oh no, it's not strapped to the bottom. Oh, it is. Oh, there you go. That's why. So, reason why I thought this was just attached by a carpet is because down there you can see the rusty strap that's just come off, and down here, you can't see that actually, so let's try and get a bit more. No, I'm not sure you're going to be able to. This bit here, nah, it's not getting enough light on it. Is also rusty as hell. I can't even see a fitting there, so let's see whether, if it's really this rusty, will it just break off. Not that I'm in the habit of breaking things off, I'll have to address it later, but yeah, it's very rusty, that is. It's not good. Yeah. Okay, we've got that off there. Piece of carpet. And we have this weird big thing here. Put that back in later. So now you can really see a lot better just how, I mean, look at that, it's just rotten. So I'm going to twist that off because it is foobarred, I would say. There you go. Don't think that was performing much of a function. Now these are really rusted out. I don't know, I can't even see any semblance of a fitting there. Oh, maybe there's a little bolt there. I'll see what I can do to, but look at that one. It's just, it's utterly knackered. So I'll have to come up with a new idea for those, I think. Anyway, so that's the fuel tank. Quite wobbly now. It's going to get quite petrol smelly in here at some point, I imagine. Let's just pull this bit of carpet off. The thing with TVR, there's a lot of things that are just covered in a bit of carpet, you know what I mean? Just a bit of carpet. Okay, so that's all my fuel items. So we're going to need to, they're welded on, so I'm going to need to disconnect these Jubilees. Oh, 3 of them? Yeah, 3 of them, to be able to remove this. I guess that's the fuel sender or fuel something, cable tied on there. Nice. We should be able to disconnect that. Wonder why that's got that cable tie on it. Sorry, it wasn't focusing the camera there, but just a cable tie holding that on. That's always a bit on the worrying side of things. Maybe it was a bit loose. Anyway, that's off now. I'll leave that in so it doesn't get too smelly. And then I assume once those are done, this might just it's got a... maybe not, that's a drain plug I think at the bottom of that. Okay, right, we'll give a go at these Jubilee clips and then we'll go from there. So we've got a fuel line down here coming out the back of the tank, down there. Can't see at the moment whether it's got any particular fitting on it, but this feels a little more, oh no, it's just wedged. Okay, so it's choice here whether I'm going to replace these lines anyway, and therefore I can just chop them instead of trying to make the effort to get them off. And then we've got this line here which has no available screws on it. It's just crimped by the feel of it. I spent a lot of time messing about with this fuel tank when really I should have just cut those hoses straight away, not messed about with all of this Jubilee clips and everything, because it was really difficult to, well, I couldn't get it off even then, so I just cut through it in the end. So that was a lot of wasted time. I kind of also messed around a bit with some of the hoses when they were just easy to kind of disconnect, and it took me a long time just to realise that there was a drain at the bottom, which we'll talk about in a second. So a lot of faffing about basically for little result. So we've got to this point now where I realised the obvious. There's a big hole, see it, in the bottom. It's covered with a rubber bunk, you can see there. So I can drain the fuel tank quite easily. So I just need to find the appropriate sized hex, drain it off, and then we'll be able to disconnect it, pull it backwards, get it out of the way, get to those 2 bolts. Some of you might be thinking, well, surely it's possible with how loose it is just to pull it backwards and not disconnect that hose and all that kind of stuff. And you're probably right, but I don't know. When it comes to these chassis bolts, they need a lot of attention, and I already sheared one at the front. I really don't want to shear one here, so I need to have the proper full access and be able to do everything to it. All right. Okay, so the fuel tank is now draining. Did need my full breaker bar to crack it loose. It was surprisingly tight. Well, maybe not surprisingly, it is fuel. There it is. So I did have to, it's quite thin, it did slip once, but I managed to hold it on properly after that. Very little fuel actually in here, so I very nearly ran it out, which was the idea. So it's just dripping off now, just from the fuel line and also from the tank. So we'll just leave that for quite a while to drip down, and then I'll remove the fuel tank and we'll have a look at those bolts. And I've also got some advice from the Facebook group on where to find those transmission tunnel bolts, which is quite exciting, so I might have a little look at that now, just because apparently not ideal to get in while it's on the lift really, but I'm not that heavy. Lift's rated to 3,000 kilograms, TVR's only what, 1,000, 1,100? So now apparently from here, this heater thing, you can feel the bolt. Not sure I can. This at the back here, this heater hole. You can feel transmission tunnel bolt. I'm not sure. Ah, I can. Okay. Now I know where they are. Brilliant. I'll be able to cut that, no problem. Should be just here, basically. So I don't forget, in trying to, come on, focus. Focus. Not focusing. Fine. In putting this back on, one of them managed to shear off. It's really bloody annoying. The back one. The other one did it fine. Now I'm going to need another one of these, if they make these. Back on it. So after the success of being able to find those bolts in the middle, thanks to Tim Hooker for that. This is what you can feel inside the heater hole that's about here, and you can feel back to that bolt. There's a bit there, so now I know where those are. That's fantastic news. I wish another guide would have mentioned that. That's the easy way to find them. Feel through the heater hole, because then you know exactly where it is. You're not doing any guesswork. Anyway, back fuel tank has come out. Obviously you saw that all loosened anyway, so that's come out fine after it drained. Not much fuel in there at all. I've just saved the washer off the line because it was just sitting there, so that's got bagged up. We're up to 18 different bags of little bits and pieces now. You've got 4 bolts in here, so you've got 2 very kind of interesting fixings here. Allen fixings. 2 Allen fixings. They were covered in a rubberized coating here, which makes sense because the fuel tank rests against them. You don't want it constantly rubbing. Here I just talk all sorts of nonsense about how I thought the 2 Allen heads at the top didn't connect into the chassis, but had a bolt at the back, but they clearly didn't. They connect straight into the chassis. So I was just talking all sorts of nonsense at this point. So I thought I'd speed it up and voice over it. So you've got the 2 Allen headed ones at the top, and then you've got 2 other bolts right at the bottom inside the boot, and they all need to come out. They all came out. Real easy actually. Really nice and straightforward. 2 bottom ones actually, very little rust on them at all. There was a rust band on 3 of them, but that one didn't have any rust on, which was quite surprising considering the front ones. I guess they get all the battering, I guess, but they were rusty all the way through. The one that sheared, it was just toast, it was powder effectively, but all these ones were really good. So we've only got 2 in the cabin to go. Just a little tip. I've locked that boot, put it in its lock position, just pushed it down till it clicks, and that means that I don't have to worry about, if I disconnect the battery a bit later, this opening and shutting. That's quite straightforward. All right, so we're going to get inside. We're going to find that bolt. We're going to cut that hole with the Dremel, get those 2 bolts out. I'm assured the shelf doesn't need to come out. The instrument binnacle, the stereo, I did take out, and then removed all this wiring from an old CD changer. Well, might sound a bit weird because I'm fully PPE'd up. Well, as you can see, got a socket on it. Woohoo! Here I'm just talking about how the bolt's quite difficult to get out, and I could do with a bigger hole, but I don't want to cut strips of fibreglass out because I want to fibreglass one bit back in, and it'd be easier that way. Success. It was mercifully quite loose, quite easy to loosen just with a small. Managed to get this in the gap I created without doing any more fibreglass damage. That's good. That loosened it, and then it went up a little bit, but then I realised that quite quickly I wouldn't be able to get this out if the bolt got too high. So then I switched to 17mm ratchet spanner, and that worked really well to do the rest of it. It's still a bit fiddly, but you know, came out. I'll put the other side in a slightly different place just to make it easier for me, but hopefully it's just as easy as this one. Obviously, them being inside the body under lots of fiberglass and stuff like that, they are practically pristine condition, so nice and easy to remove. Good news. Did a much better job of this access panel. It's quite a lot bigger, but you can see I can get the ratchet on easy. It's turning really nicely, so pull out real easy in a second. Final bolt. removed. A bit mashed up at the bottom there, isn't it? Just want to make an extra note about this chewed up one on the right side here, because that chewed up one, that was in the driver's side, and I remember when I started loosening it, the washer was already loose on this one at the bottom, which tells me that even when the guy who put this in, I assume it's guy, girl, could be either I suppose, Tracy did all my door control modules it seems, it clearly maybe they didn't drill the hole far enough down into the chassis like they did on the passenger side, and that's why it's all, this is also chewed up, and he didn't fully tighten it because he knew that if he did fully tighten it, it might shear off because it was feeling really quite tight. So I'm not sure what to do about that when it comes to putting it back in. Maybe put a shorter one in because it definitely has a reasonably long thread. You know, chop this end bit off or something like that. Don't know, just wanted to take a note to self so that when I come back to reassembly, I know what I mean.